Hey guys, what's going on? Oh wait, let's use this screen. Hope you're all doing well. Hope you're having a good weekend so far. But let's get into some of this Trump tariff chaos. This is something that President Trump posted on Truth Social, and people were talking about this on Twitter. This whole crazy thing about his plans with the tariffs and how it's going to wind up, or at least like this is one theory going in about how Trump's tariffs are going to work. Trump posted this himself, so it's pretty crazy. It was reposted by an account on Twitter too. But let's get into it.
Trump is crashing the stock market by 20% this month, but he's doing it on purpose. And this is why Warren Buffett just said Trump is making the best economic moves he's seen in over 50 years.
Okay, that's a bunch of bullshit. I think it was Warren Buffett's firm. I forgot what it was called off the top of my head, but Berkshire Hathaway. Berkshire Hathaway had to come out, release a statement saying Warren Buffett never said this about Trump, which is pretty funny to me. I mean, it's funny that Warren Buffett, they had this list of all these billionaires that attended Trump's inauguration, like Jeff Bezos, Tim Cook, and all this stuff. And, you know, they all lost tens of billions of dollars. Warren Buffett didn't attend Trump's inauguration. He's up like 30 billion or 12 billion or something. I'm not sure exactly what, but he's up. Everybody else is down. It's pretty funny. So I guess the Trump curse is real.
Now, here's the secret game he's playing, and it could make you rich. So why is he doing this? To push cash into treasuries, which forces the Fed to slash interest rates in May, and those lower rates.
Is there any indication from Jerome Powell that he's going to cut rates anytime soon? I saw a presser with him. He was answering some questions and stuff like that. He admitted inflation's probably going to go up. Growth is probably going to slow down. That S word, stagflation, is in the air right now. And let's just say our boy Jerome Powell looked like he needed a cigarette, but I don't see any indication. But I don't know. Well, let's see what happens next week. Let's see what happens over the weekend. We'll see more about that. But this is a pretty big gamble with Trump here, obviously.
Give the Fed the ability to refinance trillions of debt very inexpensively. It also weakens the dollar and drops mortgage rates. Now, it's a wild chess move, but it's working. Now, you're probably wondering, what about his tariffs? Well, I'll tell you, it's a genius play. It actually forces companies to build here to dodge them.
Okay. Yes, that's what could happen. But you got to understand, America's economy is 80% services. We mothballed a lot of factories in the wake of NAFTA. America's production capability, it's still okay, I guess, but not nearly as good as something as China. China like eclipses us easily as far as production goes. And if America wants to be isolationist, well, China, I mean, they can be isolationist more than we can, but they're already working. South Korea and Japan, all these East Asian countries are working together with China right now, which is kind of crazy to think about because we all know how much they hate each other. But China can sell goods to other countries easily. Like, yeah, you're probably losing something because they're implementing 34% tariffs, like a retaliatory tariff against Trump. So, you know, losing the U.S. as a customer kind of sucks. But, you know, China has other options. And people are saying, oh, China's going to back down. China's going to back down. I just don't see that happening. Not that I'm super educated about this, but I really think Trump is playing with fire here. I don't think China's going to play by the rules. It's just, and also, you know, Trump is really betting on this whole, you know, Americans don't really need this tech junk. They don't need cheap stuff on Temu. They don't need cheap Chinese stuff on Temu. But like, not just as much as like electronics, but clothing as well. You know, he's really counting on that. Like, Americans love their cheap crap. I mean, look, I bought this smartwatch. This is $35 on Amazon. It's made by a Chinese company. I have some other stuff too. I have these earbuds. They're not on my desk right now, but still, they have there's a lot of stuff on there that's relatively reliable tech, and it's cheap as hell. And Americans love that stuff. And I mean, is Trump really betting against that? I don't know. I mean, I guess he is, but it's pretty dangerous, Donnie. Pretty dangerous.
It also forces farmers to sell more of their products here in the U.S. to bring.
You know, it's the funniest thing about this too. I know I'm pausing a lot, but you know, Trump, you know, he got rid of a lot of, you know, foreign non-documented workers too. A lot of these farms lost a lot of their workforce too. So, you know, I hate to be like that guy, but it's like, okay, are we going to get like a new group of workers in there, like American workers, to pick fruit for like $5 an hour? Are they going to have to raise the wages? How's that going to affect farmers? What's going on with this here? You know, it's one of those things some people don't like, but America is very dependent on like foreign labor. So you want these farms to up their production, you get rid of their workforce. I don't know. Maybe there's something I'm missing. Maybe there's some explanation for it that I don't get, but um, it's pretty crazy.
Bring grocery prices way down. We've already seen this with eggs. Now remember, 94% of all stocks are owned only by 8% of Americans. So Trump, he's taking from the rich short term and handing it to the middle class through lower prices.
Have prices lowered? I know prices went down on eggs by a few percent. I know people are kind of happy about that, but because eggs, I was at the store last week for the nice cage-free eggs, for the fancy ones. Those are like almost $10, and the cheaper eggs, like the usual, lower grade eggs, they were about $6, which is insane. Because I remember a few months ago buying eggs for like $2 a dozen. It was crazy, but yeah, that's this TikTok video. What do you guys think about it? I don't know. I'm kind of nervous about it, but let's get into some of these. Let's get into some of these articles here from various other sources. So U.S. starts collecting U.S. Trump's new 10% tariff, smashing global trade norms. Trump's tariffs impact global markets, causing $5 trillion loss in S&P 500 value. I think the S&P, I think all these stocks, the Dow is down. All told, through all these stocks, all these like big name stocks, they're down like $10 trillion since Inauguration Day, which is pretty crazy. Countries like Australia, Britain, and Saudi Arabia face immediate 10% tariff. The hiccups, of course. Exemptions include crude oil, pharmaceuticals, and semiconductors from tariffs. So, yeah, I know they were tariffing Taiwan. I'm not sure what the rate was. Was it 25%, 35%? But like, we get a lot of semiconductors from there, and that's going to cripple the tech industry. But apparently, those are exempt. So at least Trump used a little bit of foresight there. U.S. Customs agents began collecting President Donald Trump's unilateral 10% tariff on all imports from many countries on Saturday, with higher level levies on goods from 57 larger trading partners due to start next week. I believe it's this Wednesday. The initial 10% baseline tariff took effect at U.S. seaports, airports, and customs warehouses at 12:01 a.m., ushering in Trump's full rejection of post-World War II system of mutually agreed tariff rates. Lord have mercy. Lord have mercy. This is the single biggest trade action of our lifetime, said Kellyanne Shaw, trade lawyer at Hogan Lovells and former White House trade advisor during Trump's first term. Shaw told a Brookings Institution event on Thursday she expected the tariffs to evolve over time as countries seek to negotiate lower rates. This is huge. This is a pretty seismic and significant shift in the way we trade with every country on Earth. Trump's Wednesday tariff announcement shook global stock markets to their core, wiping out $5 trillion in stock market value for S&P 500 companies by Friday's close. A record two-day decline. Prices for oil and commodities plunged while investors fled to the safety of government bonds. Yeah, massive sell-off. I think the NASDAQ 100 was in bear market territory. The S&P was in corrections territory for a little while there. It's pretty crazy. But, it's going to be the funniest outcome. What's probably going to happen, I hate to say it, but the stocks are going to recover next week. They're going to be back to like their pre-tariff levels, and this whole thing will just turn out to be some big wealth transfer, a big nothing ever happens moment. All this money getting wiped out. This is like, how much of this is real? Now, I'm invested. I have an IRA. I own some stocks, so I take this stuff a little bit more seriously. Even if my financial guy hasn't gotten back to me in a couple days, which makes me nervous. I gotta check my portfolio, but I don't want to think like this, dismiss it all on the hand, like, well, I don't own stocks, so I don't care. A lot of people have that attitude, but it's just like, bro, I mean, you probably have a 401k through work. I mean, this affects, you in a lot of ways. It's just, as far as, GDP and what goes. I know a lot of people don't own stocks. Like, the most stocks are owned by the top 8%, but this affects more people, more working people. If you work at a decent job, you got some 401k, maybe with some profit match or 401k matching, you got something like that, or you got profit sharing. That's definitely something that affects you as well, but among the countries first hit with a 10% tariff are Australia, Britain, Colombia, Argentina, Egypt, and Saudi Arabia. A U.S. Customs and Border Protection bulletin to shippers indicates no grace period for cargoes on the water midnight on Saturday. So this is pretty crazy. But this is a little information about Trump's tariffs. This whole thing he calculated, it was goofy. Massive tariffs that President Donald Trump announced for dozens of trading partners Wednesday were pitched as reciprocal, simply aiming to match the tariffs other countries charge the United States. But it's like he totally made this shit up. It makes no sense. But here we go. But the methodology behind Trump's attempt to rebalance trade has something to do with the tariff rate that foreign countries impose on the U.S. The Trump administration instead a grossly oversimplified calculation that it said factored in a broad set of issues such as Chinese investment, alleged currency manipulation, and other countries' regulations. The administration's calculation divided a country's trade deficit with the U.S. by its exports into the country times 1/2. That's it. The president is essentially taking a sledgehammer to address a litany of grievances, using the trade deficit in other countries, had with the U.S. as a scapegoat in a vague calculation that have broad implications for countries that America depends on for goods and the foreign companies that supply them. Oh, baby. I know a couple countries came to the table. I think Vietnam and Cambodia slashed their tariffs already. We get textiles from Cambodia, we get clothes from Vietnam, so that's good, I guess. You can't really, it would take a while to reshore that those kind of industries in America, and a lot of Trump fans are like touting this as some big deal, but it's like, yeah, those are small trading companies. We have a big trade deficit with like Cambodia. They bought $300 million of stuff from us. We bought $12 billion of stuff with them. Trump's trying to like close that like little discrepancy there, but he's going about it. I guess it did work out for him in Cambodia at least. But I mean, because they're just such a tiny little country, their GDP is like a fraction of ours. So you can bully some smaller countries, but when it comes to like China and the EU, I don't know, man. You might force them into each other's arms here. But here we go with China. Now, China responded with 34% tariffs. On Friday evening in Beijing, a rapid-fire series of policy announcements, including a 34% across-the-board tariffs, China showed that it has no intention of backing down in the trade war that Mr. Trump began this week with his own steep tariffs on imports from around the world. China's finance ministry said it was matched Trump's plan for 34% tariffs on goods from China with its own 34% tariff on imports from the United States. Separately, China's Ministry of Commerce said it was adding 11 American companies to a list of unreliable entities, essentially barring them from doing business in China or with Chinese companies. The ministry imposed a licensing system to restrict exports of 7 rare earth elements that are mined and processed almost exclusively in China and are used in everything from electric cars to smart bombs. I know, like, how many American cars are the Chinese buying? I know they got big markets in there in China, but when it comes to that kind of stuff, like you're gonna have they're gonna put tariffs on our cars now, so they'll be more expensive in China. Who's buying this shit? I mean, they have that big EV market there, but this goes into this. Will Trump tariffs drive Europe into China's arms or into a fight? Cars are just one small part of the equation. There's a lot of other materials, machinery, electronic goods, clothing, all sorts of stuff, comes from these countries, comes from these big trading partners. But this is something interesting, proposing that the EU and China could start working together, even though, well, they get into this a little bit, there's been some tension between these two entities, but they're the number 2 and number 3 trading partners, or trading economies in the world. So let's see here. President Trump's tariffs mean that companies across the European Union and around the world are at risk of losing access to the world's largest consumer market. Naturally, they are looking for the next big thing. Statistically speaking, that would mean China. The EU has the second largest consumer market in the world behind America. China is third, but China and the EU have not exactly been cozy in recent years. Europe has regularly blasted China for overproducing and dumping artificially cheap products in the global market, and European leaders have criticized China's stance towards Russia's war in Ukraine. among other political and social issues. Still, the EU was staring down 20% across the board tariffs in the United States, even higher levies on major products like cars and trucks. China is confronting rates in excess of 50%. There's a small chance those tariffs could drive the two economies, large economies, closer together. Experts said unintended consequence at a time when Mr. Trump's America has been trying to weaken China. I think Biden imposed 100% tariffs on Chinese EVs. That was kind of a move to kind of protect our good buddy Elon Musk. But yeah, if things are getting more expensive, 20%, yeah, geez. But like, I mean, I don't know. I mean, you're not going to be able to buy like a European car in America for a fair price anytime soon. What kind of competition, is America? I mean, you want to help the big three out and stuff like that, but this is, I don't know about this kind of stuff, man. It's just really a mess. There have been early hints of a thaw. The EU imposed higher tariffs on Chinese-made electrical vehicles last year. And China's Commerce Ministry that said at a news conference on Thursday the two sides had agreed to restart negotiations. Olaf Gill, an EU spokesman for trade, said officials had agreed to continue discussions on electric vehicle supply chains and take a fresh look at pricing. There is even a greater possibility that this moment will tear the EU and China further apart. China introduced access to American consumers could prod its companies to send even more cheap metals, chemicals, and other products in Europe's direction, worsening concerns about dumping and heightening already high tensions and other matters. Relations between the two nations could deteriorate, widening the damage as America blows up long-standing global trade patterns. Yeah, your whole global trade infrastructure is totally fucked up here. And the people that bear the brunt on this are the consumer, American consumers. I mean, you want other options, you're pretty much fucked. You have to buy American. And as I said before, we don't really produce much of anything. But there's some other story I thought that was kind of funny. Nowhere on Earth is safe. Trump imposes tariffs on an uninhabited island near Antarctica. Australian Prime Minister surprised after external territories, including tiny Norfolk Island and remote islands home to penguins, targeted by U.S. President. A group of barren, uninhabited volcanic islands near Antarctica, covered in glaciers and home to penguins, has been swept up in Donald Trump's trade war as U.S. President hit them with 10% tariff on goods. Heard Island and McDonald's Island, which form an external territory of Australia, are one of the remotest places on Earth, accessible only via a 2-week boat voyage from Perth on Australia's west coast. They are completely uninhabited, with the last visit from people believed to be nearly 10 years ago. Nevertheless, Heard and McDonald Islands featured on a list released by the White House of countries that have new trade tariffs imposed. The Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese said on Thursday, nowhere on Earth is safe. So he's tariffing penguins. And we all know how much we depend on trade from penguins. So that's very disturbing news. Very disturbing news. But let's get into this other thing here. I saw this TikTok. Thought it was interesting. I thought I'd share it with you guys.
The stock market does not lie. If it goes down 1,000 or 1,500 points in one day, it's an economic indicator that people with the knowledge are very worried about what's happening. And that's what happened today.
Stocks on the
Hang on 1 second here. Okay. That's slightly better.
market and everything else. I don't want to hurt that either, but sometimes you have to give the receive.
I expected it to go down, and expected to go down that drastically.
I pay attention to the tariffs. If they could bring more jobs to American people in the United States, then I think it's great. But I don't want to see it to hurt the people in the United States.
See, the thing is, I saw this one tweet. This one guy was talking about how he owns a company that deals exclusively with China in America. He produces goods supplied from Chinese parts supplied from China exclusively. Now he's gonna have to pay like an extra $1 million to import the parts he needs because he has like an exclusivity deal. He can't produce American-made goods. He can't sell to anybody else but China. But this whole thing is fucking him over hardcore. You know, he says he might go out of business. So a lot of these businesses that have to import goods, you know, they could eat the cost. If they're like even a small cap company could probably eat the cost somewhat, maintain market share. But a lot of the time, it's going to get passed on to consumers here. So it's a real fucking disaster. It's going to hurt people in the short term.
I'm concerned. I mean, over 80 years, we've had trade partners that we trusted, that they trusted us, and we've lost that over the course of 2 months or a month.
I feel nervous for our household budget. With 2 kids, I wonder what our grocery bill is going to be like. I wonder if we can afford to upgrade our car when it breaks.
What overseas is doing to the United States, that's wrong. Whether it's any kind of business, whether it's your business, my business, or anybody's, that's wrong. And hopefully
Yeah, Trump was right. Trump was right about how much other countries were screwing us and the way they were marking this stuff up. They're basically just like pocketing the costs and imposing whatever they want, and basically just shoveling the cost out of their consumers, basically just a way to like maximize profits for themselves, you know, when it comes to tariffs and whatnot. So Trump was right about that, but the way he's going about it, man, it makes me real nervous. It makes me real nervous.
Tariffs, I know what he's trying to do. These tariffs will help the people with businesses, make the business stronger, make the people that's working and everything else, they can come back and make a decent living.
There's never been a aspect of where a tariff is considered good economic policy.
Look at 1929, Great Depression. That's the last time we did.
You look up the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act, and that was something that made the Great Depression infinitely worse. There's this new tariff policy they implemented in like the 30s, with early 30s. It really fucked everything up, and it took the U.S. obviously a couple decades to recover. You know, World War II helped a bit, if you want to frame it like that, but still, I mean, America has a history of doing this shit, so.
Across the board, massive tariffs was 1929, and there were breadlines. Tariffs have never worked out. The stock market.
All right. So, I'll tell you what, I'm going to end it there. Thank you all for watching. I really appreciate it. Just thought I'd get a little more in-depth with these kind of tariffs. A lot of chaos, a lot of nonsense going on. Global trade is going to be fucked up for a while. Trump, you know, I know he's getting big investments from like Apple and Amazon, like to the tune of a few $1 trillion to actually start building manufacturing plants in the United States. But it's going to take at least a decade until that stuff is like functioning and running at capacity. So this is like a long-term plan. Will it work out? I don't know. I'm not betting on it, but let me know your guys' thoughts down below. Like and subscribe if you would like to do that. I'd appreciate it. And that's all I got for right now. But thanks for watching. If you made it this far, you're awesome. Give me some money on Cash App, and I'll talk to you guys later.